Okay, so I would like to welcome you all again to our podcast session. And in this session, we will tell you how we created our podcast and how you can create one, how you can be mindful towards your listeners, and how you can be mindful towards yourself. My name is Juraj. I am from Slovakia. Right now, I'm studying at high school, United World College in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And this is my colleague, Kateřina.
Exactly, that's me. And you don't see my picture here, but I think it's sufficient that I'm like standing here. And I'm also studying PhD studies, and my current research is focused of motivational effect of subsidies of in agriculture. And I'm from Czech Republic, obviously, and I'm looking forward what we can create today together.
But for us, it's the most important are you the people. So who will start today? Will it be you or us telling you what to do? It will be you. You will be starting your ideal podcast session. So now we would love you. Kateřina will distribute the papers and markers, and we would love you to pair up in pairs. Preferably people who don't talk to each other that much, so you can explore and you can have new connections with people that you don't talk much. And we would love you. I'll tell you more later.
So now you have a piece of paper in front of you and you have a marker. And yeah? I will not force people to change the seat, but like it's a good point. Like, yeah. So like every like big idea or anything start with a plan and like taking the ideas from the head to the paper, because if you want to start something, you have to plan it. You have to know where from which place you want to go, which way, and what is your destination. So as like us, we started our podcast. We also planned something. We have to make research how to do it, if we're gonna cooperate with somebody, and what is our vision. So here you're gonna create your own podcast. I think you sign up for this session because you are interested in podcast, because it's a current like boom in the society. Everybody is making podcasts, everybody is listening, because it is easier than to read sometimes. Maybe we like to share our ideas. So here you're gonna write on a paper how you can imagine your podcast. If you will do some podcast, how it will be. If the podcast gonna be focused on environmental, if it's gonna be a focus on fashion, if it's gonna be about the food, about the politician, it's gonna be completely up to you, because each of us have different interests. And from my personal perspective, I think the podcast should be about something what really resonates with us. So it can be completely up to you how you take your podcast, how you're gonna name it. And here are some bullet points which you should include on your paper. When you're gonna talk about your podcast, what should be there. So I see some small changes happening here. And I have here 5 bullet points what you should have there. So the focus is completely up to you. Also, the name is completely up to you. Then don't forget to think right about how you're gonna record the podcast. If you're gonna buy some equipment, if you're gonna do it alone or in a partner, or what is the goal of your podcast? What is the vision? Why you are doing this podcast? What's gonna motivate you, drives you? Then what is gonna be the content of the episode. If you're gonna do episode once a week, once a month, if you're gonna have some guests there. And last point is how you attract your audience. Who's gonna be your audience? How it will be? If it's gonna change during the time, or you're gonna be specially focused about, for example, your classmates, somebody who is in your age. So this is completely up to you. Now it's time for you to plan how your own podcast look like if you have to make some. Okay, we're gonna give you 10 minutes to prepare something, and then we're gonna have questions and we're gonna discuss which you come with. Okay?
And a disclaimer, it's really important that you do this without any research, any previous research. So do it as your brain tells you to, and hard. Thank you. Okay, so I would have to stop you, and we are officially out of time for making our ideal podcast for now. I will ask you to put your markers down so you can focus on the presentation and not on the papers, please. And we will continue to telling you how we started doing our podcast. And just to make you sure, you will tell us about your podcast a bit later. So bear with us. But I would like to share our story now, and how we came to the podcast making idea, how it was born, and how we thought it would be like, and how it was really like. We would like to share our challenges that we faced, and the good and the bad points as well, because that's also important to share also the negative aspects of podcast making, because in the end, you're interacting with big audience, and it's really important to satisfy them. However, you have to satisfy yourself as well. Something on our agenda will be how you should name the podcast, because that's the first thing that the listener will come in contact with, your name of the podcast. And someone can choose name, like, I don't know, bread or anything. It can be really like basic word, or it can be something really interesting and more complex. Depends on you. We will tell you how we should record our episodes, how we should prepare the episodes, and the speakers and people who we invite to the podcast itself. Yeah, and since I started talking about the name, do you think it's important to name it well? What do you think? Yes, no, yes? Do you think it's important? Exactly, it's for the first impression, and it's one of the most important aspects of podcast making. Because you're setting the name probably for the whole duration of podcast. And if you rename it, and if you rebrand your podcast, it's really hard for people to get used to the new name. And you have to take a lot of aspects into consideration. And I want to tell you how my podcast got the name We Are All Gonna Die Here, Všetci tu umrieme, in my Slovak native language. And also the question is, are we all going to die here in the end? That's a good question. And that's a question I was trying to answer in my podcast. And I was trying to invite multiple people from nature conservation, sustainable living, resources, etc., to my podcast, so they can tell us whether we have a chance to survive as a humanity, as a society on this earth, and we can long-term sustain our living how we do it now. But I was thinking about the name, Všetci tu umrieme, we are all gonna die here, before, and people were saying, oh my God, why would you do that, Juraj? Well, the reason why I'm doing that is because people get interested in the name. And probably when someone is asking me about it, they are already interested in the podcast, right? So if you wanna do it in an interesting way, you have to make it really interesting by name. So people ask, why did you do that? Because if they get interested in your name, they will also get interested in the content of your podcast, which can possibly bring you a new listener. And it's really important to keep a few things in mind. One of the things is psychology of words. So although we try to avoid negative things like don't and things like that, I used future tense, but it was not in a negative connotation, although it had negative meaning. So it's kind of a paradox that in the end worked well for my listeners. And you also need to keep the word count down because that's really important. So it's not too long because it has to be really easy to remember. So let's say I would name my podcast, is climate change gonna end the world? Let's answer those questions. It can be really long and hard to remember for some people. Maybe it'll be good for you, but you have to take into consideration a lot of factors. And last thing is know your target audience. You need to know who you're making it for. You need to know whether you're making it for a young group of people, retired people, working class, what social classes you want to target. Let's say poor people, billionaires, millionaires, I don't know, whoever. And then you need to change the name in a way that it will make them interested in it. Because if it doesn't, well, then you don't have a listener.
Okay, now I will also add some points about my podcast, which was like what I understand for Juraj. He was doing his podcast on his own, right? And I was doing podcasts like with two more girls, and it was interesting because we were all of us were from different field. I mean, I was studying economy, they were studying languages, and also from the like that personal point of view, they have different opinions, they have different approach to work. So for us, it was also kind of there was first like advantage, disadvantage, or like how you want to approach it, that we have to combine our opinions in one podcast together. And about the name, we wanted to make it simple and covering so many topics. And we knew that we are not a specialist in many fields. We know that we're gonna read some studies, we're gonna make some opinions about it, and then we're gonna share it in our audience. So we were like thinking about one platform, one, let's say, artist, which is famous in Czech Republic, and it's called Honest View. It's from guide who is showing Prague, like our capital city, and he is also making honest view about other cities in Czech Republic, really from his honesty. So we wanted to somehow collaborate from this. So we call it also honest, but honest view. He was honest guy, sorry. He was honest guy, and we are honest view. So we somehow collaborate the similar name because we like his approach to for his work. And in our podcast, we like obviously we were focused on ecological topics. We make a podcast about fast fashion, about food waste. We also make podcasts about our trips, which I did to Kenya. So we talk about the Dam Dandora, which were presenting yesterday, and also about the coffee production there and other topics. And for me, it was nice to see how we were preparing, because all of us, we wanted to put the best of us in a podcast. So usually before each recording of the episode, we make a word and we put there like all of the researches, we put there questions which we're gonna ask to each other. And it was really complex. We had to make a huge preparation before exact recording, because without it, it will be just talking about nonsense stuff or like just general stuff. And we really put the effort to read some facts and information which were proof from the professionalist.
And regarding my podcast, how I was imagining to create, and in the end, how it didn't really work, and I had to change half of my things, what I wanted to do. My podcast, I wanted to make my podcast really fancy, nice looking, really posh, kind of. So it looks like it's done by professional. But I realized I'm not a professional, and I don't think neither of us are professional in podcast making. And if we are, then it's good. And it'll show in the podcast itself how it looks like, sounds like, etc. However, I realized I cannot make it look amazingly and how I imagined it. And therefore, I went with the reality and realized that I have to make it how I want it in real life, and I have to be realistic in my expectations. And therefore, I had to change how I see it, and it went really good actually in the end, but my expectations had to be changed, and generally my viewpoint of how I see the podcast making process, and generally how I think about podcast had to be changed. Otherwise, I would not be satisfied with my results. And in the end, I was, and I'm really happy I changed the way I see podcast and making of my own podcast, because it really helped me. And now, since you also created your podcast here, I also have some additional questions for you. For people that are here with us online, I would like you to ask to join us through Slido. And for people who are here physically, we have how it's called, a paper, flip chart. Yes, thank you. And I would like you to turn around your papers and answer this question. I will turn on a Slido pool. Oh. And I would like you to sort those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points from 1 to 5 based on the importance of the interest according to your podcast. So what is more important to you for you to make? Episode about consumption, episode about fast fashion, episodes about natural parks or sustainable living, etc. So I ask you to make it in order based on your importance, right? I'll give you a few seconds.
Do you need more time or you are done? Okay. So I will ask for, according to your audience, which you selected for your podcast, who you think you're gonna listen your podcast, how many of you will make, like, you're gonna be like super focused on nature park? Will somebody do it? Yeah. And do you think that if nobody will do it, it's okay? Or like, I mean, generally, like, because you have so many topics here. So for some of you, it's completely okay that this can doesn't have to be your focus. What about consumption? Will somebody do something about consumption? Perfect. Good. Energy resources. Nobody? Okay. And fast fashion? Fast fashion? 2 hands up. Okay. And sustainable living? Dejme tomu. Okay, so everybody at least once or 2 times raised the hand. And how you were like deciding what's gonna be interesting for your audience? How, according what? Or it was just random? Just yeah. Common interest. Uh-huh. And your podcast, the name is? Zero waste cooking. That's cool. Really cool. So your target group is who? Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Okay. I think it's really nice, like idea. I think it's found like some audience, listeners, viewers. Yeah, I think like we cannot blame like OnlyFans. It's just like for some stuff, but also it can be some way of promotion. That's true. And do you think like if you're gonna be focused like for everybody, do you think that you catch like everybody? Yes. Mm-hmm. Okay, okay. I just wanted to know how you think of it. Then there was like some raised hands for fast fashion. So, girls. Uh huh. Hmm. Yeah, I think so. Like Gen Z, it's also me, and I think like my age mates are like like similar mindset that the fashion and the stuff around are important. So I agree. And then sustainable living. Who has the first one? Sustainable living. You, Lucy. So can you say us why?
Resonates with today that resonates with the people. So actually none of these topics were actually quite accurate for our podcast, but I feel like sustainable living is resonating the most right now. So it felt like the best starting point. So and also it's more general than the others. So yeah.
And then Tina at the background.
Smartphone is pollution, just to raise awareness about it, because we are activists about climate change and environment and so on, but smartphones, apps and computers also pollute, so it was a little bit humor.
Okay, thank you for your amazing insights and your plans on podcast making. And since you also told us how you were deciding how you would sort this list, I would just like to say a few disclaimers about it, because it's really important how you create your episodes and how you theme the whole podcast. And it's not only, I mean, it doesn't have to be sustainable. It can be cooking, right? It doesn't have to be sustainable, natural parks, whatever. It can be cooking. It can be social media apps, right? It can be a climate podcast about news. Sorry. However, it's really important to consider your target group and who your target group is. You said you don't have a target group. And that's really interesting because in order to gain as many followers as you can, you should have target group. I'm not saying it's a wrong approach, but from the reality and how it really works, not just from my experience, from Kateřina's as well, and from others' experience, it's really important to set your target group, because that's the way you can gain the most followers, active followers that will interact with you, that will comment, share, etc. So it can spread more fastly. So let's say your target group, yes. Yes.
Could you like help us decide which is our age group which we want to target? Because for me this project can be for everyone. So I would like you to help us, because you're really, you know what you're doing. So if you can help us to just choose for whom we want to do it.
That's an amazing question. How you should choose your target audience. What kind of meal do you want to cook? That's really like, do you want to do Asian food? Do you want to do European food, classical food, or something new, modern, you know, or American food, Mexican? What is your locally and seasonally? Okay, so who would like to cook locally and seasonally? Czechoslovaks. Okay.
When my grandmother she wants to cook like that because she used to do it. My mother wants to do it because she's used to do it. So for me, it's hard to decide which people.
Okay. Yes.
I can say, like, from my previous experience, I also wanted to influence or touch everybody. But then I realized it was a project what was focused Czech Republic and then like whole Europe, and I wanted to do both at the same time. So then I slowly realized that if I want to make a content for like Czech people, mainly the language should be Czech. Then from Europe, there is so many languages. So okay, make it general, so it's gonna be in English. And then your focus start to like be spread. Because it's really hard to make the target group. It can develop during the time. So from my point of view, it's good at the beginning, sort like some special audience. Like for example, you are young. So okay, my closest mates are who are in my age. I know their interest. I can focus on them. And if it's gonna work on them, then I can expand slowly and slowly, make it for like, for example, older people, younger people. And then also I can make it, okay, now I'm focused maybe Czechoslovak. It's like similar languages. I can do it like that. But afterwards, okay, it works. Like my content is like sufficient. It's successful. I can try to expand to Germany, Germany and then Austria, because they have also similar language. Some people say it's not German, both. And so I think it's like take part to part, because I think when you focus on everybody, like that's the problem what I see with Juraj, that everybody is different, and if we somehow are able to select them in the groups according to age, according their tastes in the food, according their local foods, because I'm pretty sure if you're gonna use, for example, some type of apple or like some type of a pasta which is typical for Czech Republic or Italy, like maybe this kind of a source the people in Asia will not have, so they cannot cook according to your recipe. And I think it's really good to start like with small steps, with small audience target, and then it can go wider and wider. That's my advice, but I think it's like how you gonna feel it, the feedback from your audience. Then you start to target to some group, and then you receive negative feedback that they don't like it. Maybe you can then like retarget your group, and afterwards you will see, yes, I maybe target to like young, like my generation, Gen Z, but my audience, according to some statistics, which I will look or like find, I will see that my posts, my podcasts are listening mainly people between 30 and 40, like those people. And maybe they are not from Czech Republic, maybe they are just from Slovak. And then I'm like, okay, so maybe next recipe should be in with some cheese or some sheep cheese or anything what is typical for that area. And I can do what my audience wants, because if I'm doing what I want, it's something what I want and maybe others are not interested in. Yeah.
Understood that this is very complex and very
Yes.
vast and so on. And of course, if you can target these machines, are you not targeted with machines? So are you consumers or producers? Yeah.
This is a really good point. Yeah. Thank you. So amazing, lovely. So now we know how to set our target group. And if we have the target group, how now we can turn our idea into success? What do you think?
Yes, what do you think? Some ideas? Successes. Like, if I have this idea, you have it just in front of you. How you want to make your podcast, why or how you think it's gonna success.
Success in this society means a lot of people.
Exactly.
Millions of
Uh-huh.
listeners.
Yeah, that you are gonna have some listener, at least 10. So it's more than your family, hope. Yes, that's also a way. Are you gonna share the link in Game On community and yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, comments. Exactly. Like the first point is like, okay, you did your episode, you are like sharing somewhere, and then it's good to make some advertisement around. So you can start to telling your friends. So they gonna listen, they gonna like it. If they gonna like it or doesn't like it, they give you feedback. So you know how change the path. And then if they like it, they can share it. You can ask them, like, yeah, can you help me? Can you share it in your like society bubble? So they can help you. That's the first one. Or what I will not so much talk about because I don't have experience with it. Also, you can make some advertisement like pay for it. So for example, it's really good when you have your podcast somehow connected with some social media, because our current situation is social media everywhere. And also, I think if somebody is listening podcast, they are aware about social media. So I have here small paper. And what is like I think like my power, what I'm really good when I'm doing something, and also it's good when you're making podcast, is to make some comprehensive content, just not with what is inside, what is the topic of the episode, but also it's good to plan when you gonna post the podcast. For example, according to statistics which you see maybe on Facebook or Instagram, you see that your audience is mainly active, for example, on Monday. So maybe Monday evening. So then what is the best time to post the podcast? Monday evening, because they gonna listen, then they can share. You just catch them in that time when they give you their attention. Then you have to also watch out what is still it depends what is the topic of your podcast, but you have to watch out what is the season. What is the season of the year? For example, your podcast is somehow connected with the season. For example, if you are making food, then you can like according what is growing now, then you can make a post about it. Then if there in a month there is some special event, you can also point on this day. For example, it's some national holiday, there is some traditional food or something what you can connect your podcast with. Also, you have to watch out if you are posting, for example, on a weekend. Usually people on weekend or some national holiday, they are not doing so much stuff. They have their own plans outside, so they will not so much respond to your podcast. Maybe it's gonna then prolong their reaction. Here, unfortunately, I have it just in Czech, but this is an example from one account. Then on Instagram, it is possible to find in a setting this one overview, where you can, if you're gonna like research and like go through many slides, you can find for each of your posts how many people saw it, how many people were like attracted. For example, for this post, it was 431 accounts, but just 155 was like those who actually follow you, but other ones were some new ones which you attracted with your post, and they are like, okay, this I really like it, this is maybe what I will listen again, which I will like search again. Also, there are other statistics, how much time the average account spend there, and etc. and etc. So, yeah, question?
From your experience, is also regularity important? I mean, to create habits. So as you said, sometimes in the morning or the season, it's also good. For instance, every Monday afternoon, I have my podcast, so you create habits. I think it's also important because, as you said, we are not professional, so we need something else. We need to create a kind of community and regularity to do it.
Exactly. Because then the people will know, okay, Monday evening, what I gonna do? They have a podcast, so I'm gonna listen. Like this. I think the regularity is really important in this.
Yes, so now we know how to choose our target audience, and we also know when to release our new podcast episode. What else do we need? We need equipment. And do we need a lot of equipment? What do you think? Because I don't know, I started with a microphone that cost me something. I started with software that cost me something. And this was a lot of expenses that were thankfully covered by a project. However, this doesn't have to be the case for everyone. And so I have another tool for you where you have to consider whether you want to buy equipment, microphones, hardware, that's microphones, and software, which is a program to edit the audio. And what do you think? Is it important, or can you just use your phone for recording, laptop for editing, something for free? Or how much money would you like to invest? Can you think about it for a few seconds, and then you can tell me what you think? Okay, so someone is saying the third option would be the best. And what is the basis? Why do you think the third option would be the best? Yeah.
Well, I think for at first you don't need the most expensive equipment. So is it okay? So that's why.
If you don't, if you don't need expensive equipment, why don't you just record it with your phone and edit it for free in your laptop? Something that your laptop offers for free. Why? This is a question I was asking myself, and in the end, my answer was, if I have the resources and I can afford it to buy something that costs me a lot of money, I can do it. And if it's not a burden to me, I should do it, because then it can upgrade the quality of my podcast. However, if you don't have the needs, and if you don't have the need, yes, and the ways how to buy it is not a problem, because in the end, people, if you're starting and they know you're not a professional, they don't care about the quality of the sound that much as they care about the content itself. And it's really important to mention that, because for like starters, you might pay 400 a year for a podcast, which is a really big amount if you're just doing it as your hobby. If you're doing it for work, then of course it's reasonable to afford and to buy something more expensive than just a microphone for 92 euros from Amazon. However, Premiere Pro from Adobe is something that's usually necessary. You can use something for free as well. However, this is like the basic cost for podcast making if you want to make it on like better level. But is it worth it? I don't know. You have to consider. You have to know what you want to do. What is your target audience? If it's going to be someone with I don't know, worse hearing, anything, it doesn't have to be that good. But the thing is that you also have to have good editing skills, and this program won't help you. That program will not do it for you. You have to do it by yourself, and you have to learn. And how do you learn it? You can't just like ask, I don't know, how would you edit your podcast? I cannot ask her because she might not know. And this is for free. This is something we have for free. We can go to YouTube and we can find it on YouTube. There's so many tutorials how to edit audio for free. And it's a lot of resources that we have on the internet that we should use for free. But in the end, you have to remember that it's not the content, the audio quality. It's the content quality that matters. And it's about how you say it and how you, in the end, will create a podcast and the sound of it, because that's what matters and that's what listeners want to listen to.
Okay, thank you. And here we're gonna talk more about how expand your influence. It's gonna be linked to my previous speech that we're always talking about the target audience because it's the elementary stuff. And if you like choose the right group at the beginning, it's really good for you. But if you choose the wrong one, it's also good because then you know those people, they don't like what I do. I don't want to change what I do. Okay, so then I'm changing to different target. Also, it really depends about the content what you are creating. So you can make something what is educational, so then you need to read, to accumulate so many information and facts around. So for you have to be prepared before every recording. It's really important to make some quality content, like a preparation, write it somewhere, or if you're doing something what is like a freestyle, what is funny, then you have to be free, do it according to you. Also, it is good when you collaborate with some for example, we are all of ecologists, then collaborate with some environmental community or ask some guests to come to your podcast to make some interview. Try to like spread it with the wild society and use anything what you know. For example, some of your friends doing similar stuff, so you can collaborate together and make something nice, because also it doesn't matter, it has to be just a work, but I think mainly it is fun for everybody and entertainment. Here on the following slide, I would like to share with you some good tips how to manage and organize your podcast. So the first one is Business Suite, which is a platform which is completely free to use, but it has to be linked to Facebook. So for example, your podcast for your audience, it's gonna be linked to Facebook. Then this one is really good for you to use. But if you don't want to use Facebook because maybe your audience is younger and you think you're gonna catch them on Instagram or TikTok, then also this platform works for Instagram, and you can see here the statistics and the number which can lead you to more approach to your audience. From my point of view, I always put more like a value for numbers, because they never lie. Even though like your emotion that you feel, yes, this podcast was good, it can be just your feeling, not like others. But these statistics show you if the people really like it. Then the next one here is some numbers in millions, but these numbers are just for Czech Republic. So it shows that on social media, mainly the people are on YouTube. So that's interesting. And then on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, Pinterest, also the platform where you can like pop up, and also Snapchat and Tinder. So when somebody told about the OnlyFans, I think also it is a way how to approach somebody if I am doing the content which is like approachable for that platform. Also here they are like dividing the generations. So if I want to approach people who are like boomers who were born before 1960, I have to approach them, for example, on Facebook, because they are older generation, they are used to more for just the first, let's say, social media. Then if we take a look to Gen Z, then we see it's the people who were born after 1995, and they are more for us, so maybe it will be more approachable for us to make a connection with them. And for them, it's the best way, Instagram or TikTok, because those applications are really new, and those people are really like, they can change, and they're like the changes. Also, here are some links for some tips, because the statistics and anything around how people act is really important. So I can recommend those two platforms, is Group M and Met Water. There are like so many statistics how people act on social media, but generally not just there, but also on the internet. And those numbers can help you, not just like globally that you can see how many people globally they are on internet and on social media, but also specifically for your country. So if you want to focus on Czech Republic, you can check Group M and you can see how many people in which age are using this platform and this platform. Then also, when we are planning the post and podcast about it, it's really good to use, for example, application Later. There is a free version which can help you to make content. For example, you can plan it for like whole month, the posts around your podcast, and then you don't have to care every day and post it on a specific time which you pick up. Also, the Canva, I think everybody knows Canva. It's like light Photoshop, and it helps with all of the designs around, even for beginners. And then if you are doing podcasts in a group, it's really good to make some space where you can write your ideas, when you can, for example, divide tasks. And for this one, I think or recommend the Frilo or Trello. It can help you with organization of the whole work. Then here are some statistics just to give you a fact around. Then there is almost 60% of the population can be found on social networks. That means like more than half population on Earth. Then the interesting there is that there are more males who are there than women's. And also the average time per day, it's like 2.5 hours when people spend time on social media. And that's the most important facts from there. And we had a question about target group here. And one of the main questions which you should ask when you are picking the target group is, who is your audience, like the age? So we know there are some generations, so you know the age of your audience which you want to target. Then how you can reach them. So you have here the platform. So according to age, you can find who fits in that social media. And the last one is, what is your goal? Like if you want to use that platform just to keep their loyalty, or it should be just for fun, that social media, which is going to be somehow connected to your podcast, and so on. I will a little bit speed up because the time is pressing us. This is a similar one. And we need to know that the trends are changing. So for each social media, we have to make a different content. We have to make a different strategy. And we have to also know that if I have, for example, Facebook and also Instagram, I cannot use the same post on both of them, because if I will do it, then both of the platforms have a different measuring, they have different strategies. So if you're gonna make it, it cannot make the same reach on both platforms. Yeah. Yes. Metcalfe's. No.
It's very important. He was one of the pioneers on the internet technology. And so the usefulness of a network is the square of its users number. And so what does it mean? When you are in a community, you should also have a change of paradigm. So you should, as young people, new paradigm, you should immediately share what the others do. Because this is the method. No, this is you are sure to be successful if you do that. But people don't do it. So method law should be used also as a basic law of all methods.
Okay, thank you for that contribution. And I think, yes, I think this is like our last question to you. So according what you pick up, your podcast, the topic, what will be your platform where you are gonna show that you are doing it? So it's gonna be Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, or Meta advertisement, like both of Instagram and Facebook. Yeah, I'm gonna pass my mic to each of you, and you can say why.
I would use Instagram because I think it has the biggest reach of all of them. I mean, for example, on TikTok you have mostly just the videos, but on Instagram you have posts that can be videos or photos. You have also reels. You have stories. So I think it has the biggest reach even. About the generations there are on Instagram, so I think it would be the best option for me.
So for us, it's like on the first place we have TikTok, because of the Gen Z and like speaking from my point of view, most of the young people are using TikTok, and then also Instagram. We wouldn't choose Facebook because that's not our target group. So these two.
You can use everything, but personally, I think all what is online has a bad reputation because self-promotion. So I think you should have someone else or an avatar to promote your stuff.
Amazing, thank you. And now we came to the end of our presentation, and we have some key takeaways that we would really like you to take from this presentation. And it's two really important things. You really have to know your target group and your goal from the beginning, because if you don't know the target group, you can't basically do anything. You cannot choose how you do your episodes. You cannot choose how you advertise your episodes. You basically cannot do anything. And how is it with the goal?
How is with the goal? I think the goal we're gonna set up at the beginning that we, for example, want to change some point of view of the sustainability of the fast fashion or some ecological stuff or the food, but it can change during the times. Maybe it's also good to make some step goals, like during like some milestones during the year, and then it's gonna be more motivating for us if we can reach them, because usually the goal is something big and unreachable for us at the beginning, and then through small milestones we can reach it.
Exactly, and this is end of our presentation, and we would like to thank you for your attention that you stayed here with us.